Okay, so that wasn't really much more than a minute to go and get a glass of water, but I think we'll progress anyway. As I said at the outset of this video, I've actually got a game arranged for later today, and I'd like at least the section to be, well, the actual castle to be a backdrop, even if it's not going to be obviously anywhere near finished as a painted article. Now, what we're trying to do here is fit this section at the back opposite the incoming ramp, and we're trying to keep this arrow aligned correctly. So the arrow obviously refers to that blank section, and it's going to be fitted that way round. And this is where these additional holes in the model come into their own. Now I'm seeing that, do you know what my advice would be? Fit this first, then put these on. There's nothing stopping you fitting these on after the event, but what's happening now is I can't see the underlying lugs. That's making that a real challenge. And also at this point, we've done it wrong, because these lugs are crossways. So I'm really pleased that I didn't leave this to glue, because that cannot go there. You have to remove these. These have to be fitted there, so that these lugs have got the correct alignment with the underlying section. So I'm going to take my own advice, remove that section, fit this in properly, and then put the top section on afterwards. I think that's a key point in the instructions that I think could have been explained a little bit better, if I'm honest. Again, Sarissa may very well have put out some guidance notes on their website that I've not followed. Okay, but however, that now fits nicely. We can glue this section back on here. And actually get the lugs in the right location. Great. Okay, so let's just do this one. That's it. Fit this one up. And then put this in the right place. Okay. I guess if there's the major benefit of following a video like this is to make sure that your model goes as well as it can from the outset, and you don't have to learn from your own mistakes, you can learn by other people's. So that's the end of step 20. Now on to step 21, which wall A. You have to read that. Oh, okay. So we have to refer to the wall fitting plan next page. Okay, so let's have a look at what's on the next page. Okay, next page. Well, I can only assume they mean this section here, which I'm not convinced offers you a great deal more. Gate fitting, next page, okay. I'm not convinced there are any next pages for the walls, but I think you can get the general gist in these instructions anyway. It's 2 side pieces and a top piece and some fitting pieces in the middle. So you can see that. Each wall is comprised of 2 bits of MDF, the top section made out of cardboard. Obviously these fitters here are for the top, and the lugs at the bottom there will help locate it into the actual main model itself. So let's try and find this section, because I think that's the next piece to check. So this has got a long section with some cutouts, and I can spy that pretty easily, I think, from here. A little bit of, there we go. These I think are just window frames. They're not designed to be pushed out because you can't see anything on the reverse side. I think that's just detailing for later painting. But obviously in terms of alignment, that looks pretty good. The only thing I would say is obviously the angle, this one is slightly on the other side. So there is a different profile section which looks similar. Those two appear to match, albeit one's upside down. That's interesting. So they don't match because they would be misaligned. We have another section here. So they do match because obviously the detailing has to be on the outside in both cases. So that's definitely a wall there. That's obviously, that is a match, because if you align them, it's interestingly, that section there, look, is slightly smaller. We have more of these that appear to be the same, albeit that one has got a lug on it and one hasn't. So I think that will be an important detail to take note of before we glue anything. Here's another one that does have lugs on. So I'm assuming one with and one without. And from the diagrams, I'm assuming the ones on the outside are the ones that we should be interested in. Sorry, lugs on the outside are the ones that we should be interested in, because that's where we've got these 3 slots running around. So obviously on the outside, we try and find the right section. That looks to me like something a bit more interesting. Okay, so let's return to the instructions about where we are. And we're trying to find one that's like this, but has got, I would say that has to be the same, and it's not quite the same. Very interesting. I don't think we're at that stage yet. I think we're at this stage where we have slight difference in the actual length of the walls there. But in both cases, that section there is the same size. So perhaps in this particular case, they can't be matched together, or can they? Yes, they can. Now, it's quite difficult to see from the instructions whether the front piece only has the tag, in which case that would be wrong. But if we then use the inner piece, it is slightly larger. How interesting. All right, so we're going to have to read ahead on that one. Okay, so when it says about the wall fitting page, I think it's talking about this page here where we're looking at how these walls fit. So here, wall A, which is what it wants us to do, is running from this section, from this section to the front of the model. So in other words, in this area here. So if we were to look at the alignment, then clearly that would be the right way round. The holes are in the right place. We've got the right angle on the wall. So I can only assume that is the right thing to do. So what I'm going to do is first is find these pieces here that allow us to join the two walls together. Okay, so I think re-looking at the diagram, we've done this wrong. These don't separate the wall. The wall is one, and need to be fit together such that the outside one is longer, which basically means we need to find the one that is longer, that has the right outside profile. Now that makes a lot more sense because it hides the gap down there, and also means that these fit over like that. The only thing I'm not entirely sure about is that it leaves these lugs visible here. But I think I'm going to proceed on the basis that that is the correct fitting. It makes a lot more sense because the outer piece is now on the outside. Sorry, the longer piece is now on the outside. So again, I'm going to just assume that we're on the right lines here. Oops. In fact, now that I've got that offered up in there, I have to take that section out. Oops, this one is wrong because I now need the inner piece to have the relief detailing. So that will sit in there nicely. This will sit on the outside, and the lugs will make sure that they're fitted together. That's definitely the right way, because otherwise there would have been spaces at the bottom or something to help stop the MDF just tucking itself in and looking a bit wonky. So we've got, just for the time being, leave that like that. And then obviously this one now forms a pair. And I think we'll go over here simply because that offers the only side where they can meet. So I'm going to leave them there temporarily whilst we concentrate on the rest of the walls. I've got these two sections here, obviously, but I'm going to come back to that once I've found the top section for this wall. Now there are plenty of sections like this, but obviously that's too long. That's the right size, but it's a bit odd because we have an extra section. Same kind of thing where we've got the right sort of profile with two notches, because they will refer to those two in there. but an outer profile, and on the diagram it shows it wrapping round. So it would be odd to have that section out, but let's just keep going with our piece choices, choice of pieces. Two small ones there that are clearly not the right thing. And again, small pieces. So time to revisit the diagram because we don't have any obvious choices. Now, there is a tag which implies that it's at the back. Just apologies, just allowing myself the opportunity to read that. So what I might do is, just for the time being, I don't understand why that would have a tag on it, but let's just work on the basis that it does. That one's clearly too big. These do have a tag on them, and one has an inner join and one doesn't. So I think we'll just assume that they are the right pieces for the time being. I'll take the rest of the joining piece sections out. So these are these ones again, in preparation for getting the other walls lined up. And then I think we'll proceed on the basis of getting the general principles of the wall fitment correct, and then look again at the choice of roof section once we've got it all in position in terms of the actual walls themselves. Of all the pieces that we've taken out, I think these are the ones that are going to require most effort. I'm just pushing them in with my finger and then pulling the section out. So occasionally they need a bit of a push. Give them a bit of a push, and then you can pull them out either top or bottom. And as I said, I'm going to go around with the flat file in a minute and just make sure that none of those edges are going to cause a problem when we come to fit. You simply run around them like that. A little bit on both sides, just to make sure they don't cause us a problem. Although, to be honest, given the current or revised view of where they're going to fit, probably not as important as it was before, though, when I thought they were braces. Or spacers, sorry. I'll move this camera up a bit. That improves the view. Okay. Sorry for this, but I think this is a worthwhile endeavour. Actually bear dividends later on. As I said, quite like these permagrip tools. I've used them for years. They can be weirdly a little bit too aggressive when they're first new. Not for a job like this. I think this is perfect. When I'm filing figures, sometimes it's nice to have them slightly worn, but they do outlast any other kind of needle files that I've tried anyway, or similar. I'm using the term needle file there to apply to a whole bunch of different shapes and sizes. I use a half round, a round, and a flat. The flat gets least use apart from something like this. And perma doesn't mean forever, but it does mean they last a long time. Okay, so we've got this other wall section over here that I'm just going to pop the 6 onto. Way that we did the other ones. Okay. Okay, so now let's revisit the diagram. So this larger section that we've been talking about, this longer run, is wall section C. So I'm going to have a little look at the other information about wall section C, and we can see that it runs, oops, hopefully you can see that, there's wall section C highlighted, and that runs alongside this edge that's now annoyingly off camera, so let me move that around a bit. Okay, not sure if you can see that, but this is now that section here. And again, interestingly, this is where the overlaps start to make sense, because one goes outside, one goes inside. So if I can just perhaps put a couple of lugs in there, I'll show you what I mean. Oops, there's one. Just don't need to do that many, I just want to show you. So here we've got this section which is overlapped. Obviously this is aligned flush at the end. When we look at the other wall, that matches the reverse profile where the outer edge is longer. And obviously when we pop that in, as you can see, that's going to nicely match up in terms of the overlap. Okay. Interestingly, that's going to be a bit of a job to fit in underneath once you've fitted this wall. So again, I'm going to fit both of these together first and then fit them as a single piece. Okay, because I can't actually locate that without getting it lower. There we go. Okay, so again, I'm not fitting it for the time being, just getting the walls ready to go. Pop some of those in there just to give a bit more rigidity, make sure we don't lose them. Thanks. Okay. Okay. What I'm looking at now is that the last remaining section there, which is the sort of gate section, and trying to find how that will fit. And obviously there is a bit of a blank space here, which we'll obviously have to fill in at some point as well. And it's a bit odd. I think you can probably tell that this cuts away underneath. So whether there is something special that goes around here or not remains to be seen. Okay, so the gate section appears to be comprised of this main assembly here, which is obviously the central piece, and then two side pieces. Now, those side pieces are following the same model and seem to be this shorter run that we've got here. So we're going to have a little look for those in the bits pile. Okay, so I found some candidates for those smaller pieces. Again, we've got the same principle where one section has got some tags on, one hasn't, and a slight increase on one side, which will obviously be an outer wall. So just for sanity's sake, we'll pop one in there, there. Come back to that in a minute. And this section as well seems to be similar kind of principle, albeit that I think this one is actually level. This one has got no difference in length. So my guess would be, and it's again slightly off camera, that outer section will fit this part here because it needs to have that extra length on the outside wall. Okay, so let's put that in place temporarily, whereas this one would guess is going in there. Okay, now obviously that won't fit in, as I said, because fortunately we haven't glued this one. If we glued it, that would have been a bit of a problem. We do need to glue all of that assembly together, I think. Just leave that like that for a moment. So remove these potential roof sections. So we're now looking at this section and obviously the gate section as well. The gate section is interesting because it could go that way around. And perhaps it does actually, because then that would give us a space in there that would be sensible. If we revisit the gate section, this is probably the most complicated version, where we've got top pieces here, roof, some long sides. So I'm now going to try and locate those. Okay, so there's a sprue labelled B050 1419, which has the pieces on that I think we're interested in. I don't know why they're actually physically a lot smaller than diagram kind of conjure you into thinking that they are. We do seem to have all of the right pieces on that sprue. Well, certainly a good starting point anyway. So we've got these two side pieces. We've got the end pieces here. And we've got this joining section, which I think we're going to have to think about those being popped out. So let's do that now. There we go. And we've got these two, which I'm guessing are these here. like that, and they obviously have lugs on them. So I'll pop those in there just to make sure I remind myself what they're doing. Oops. There's one. There's two. Put that to one side. So what I need now are the two the main panel sections. Let's try and locate those. Okay, so B050 1519 has these on, which I think to me looking pretty gate-like. And again, one would assume that they go in pairs, as per the diagram, with the knotted sections, or sorry, the notched sections joining together like that, and the rear sections sitting behind them like that. Obviously, so the reverse shows the detail. There's a little bit of run over on some of these, so I'll just take that off, I think. Just in case that's important. So, as per the diagram's alignment, we've got those two there. We want this section here, which would indicate that we can put some movement on it. I don't know if you can see that, but we don't want to glue that, I don't think. That's the top piece that owns that section. I don't want to glue that. Yeah, so I'm assuming that we glue these sections together, but not anything else in terms of the door, otherwise we'll lose our ability to move. I've just spotted in the bottom section here equivalent little holes that we probably should have pushed through. There we go. That obviously these guys will now rotate in. Okay. I think from a personal choice, the lugs will be on the outside, because that then means that the doors fit flush with the wall, if that makes sense. But let's pop a bit of glue on these, because I'm fairly convinced that's the right thing to do. And if I get this wrong, this would be a major disappointment, because that won't come apart very easily. Give it a bit of a squish around. Probably used too much glue there, actually, to be honest. I'm going to just go for a little bit less in this one. Because they're two flat pieces being pushed together, you really don't need to think about too much glue being required. There's quite a bit of movement there, even with that, a small amount of glue. Okay, oops, get that back in terms of being in line. Obviously, I need to put quite as much glue on as I did. Okay, so we're starting to think about these side sections now. I don't think that there's a particular side for these other than this isn't in the center, so we probably want to think about that when we come to it, and that is the door section, I believe. That's going to do that and that. So I think, just for reference, it's going to become important when we when we decide where to locate the lugs. And I think I'd already decided that those lugs needed to be forward, which means presumably that that needs to be forward like that. Yep, that would seem a sensible bet. And again, really pleased that I haven't glued this, because this all needs to be glued at the same time. And that's quite a tight fit. So again, that reinforces the view that the walls are actually tightly glued together. See if I've got a small half round file in there. Do those sections round. Okay, and again, making sure that we got those lugs to the front. Does that start to behave itself? That's probably an easier fit for me to put in, so we need to start thinking about that going in there, like that. This is a really tight fit. But a really solid section. So I'm just going to try and remove this with a bit of care. Although it's very tight, I don't want to break it. If that's too tight, there we go. What I'm going to do with this section is glue it, because we're starting to see that this is the right approach. Let's start to glue some of this together so that we take advantage of some sections being finished. So I'm going to do, again, just check very carefully that we've got that lug there to the front, and then pop that section in back as it was a minute ago. Just put it on the table to make sure that that's properly located. Check that the alignment is still good down there. Okay. Now this section, let's put a little bit of glue so that we can fit our lugs. And push those right down so they encompass both pieces of MDF. Okay, I'll worry about the top roof a bit later on. We're going to have a similar effect on this side, with that being fitted in there. Move these to one side, take the lugs out, and again, the only thing here we're watching out for is that the outer side is a bit longer. Don't think we need too much in the way of wood glue. Again, get that right. Bit of glue down there. Let's try and locate in the other side. Again, plug to the front. Incredibly tight fit. But close enough that I'm going to go for it. Just making sure that both sides of the MDF are coming through. There you go. Yeah, and obviously, although we need to push, just a bit of caution that this is only MDF. It's a relatively small piece of MDF. Sit that back in there. We've got obviously that to fit in there, which was a bit easier. That can fit in that one. Oops. And that's going to obviously go between those two guys, making another doorway. So to make my life a bit easier, I'm going to just rub the edges, the sides of this one, because this one is a lot stronger than the receiving upper tables, upper slots here. Let's just make sure that's still quite tight. So let's take that section away a minute. Take that section away. And look at this separately. Yeah, that's the intention is that that fits in there. That's optimistic. That is, you know, some way off. So what I'm doing is simply taking the edge off a bit, and I've really gone quite aggressively there. I don't mind, because this is going to be a fairly strong section, and I don't want the gate to be under too much stress just because we fitted this section. So again, I might just take that top bit off there just for completeness, and off that bottom section there. So just need to make sure that they're correctly aligned. Oops. Interesting. Oh, there we go. That's better. Helps if you put them back the way you had them originally. So you can see I've taken quite a little bit of an angle off of there. That is deliberate. I don't want any trouble fitting that one. So we're just going to put a small amount glue along there. Squish it around a bit. Squish it around a bit. So it starts to get a bit of traction. Then just to complete this top section, we've got 4 of our locating lugs. I think this section will probably be one of the trickiest things that we're doing. I don't know why, but there we go. It seems to be a little bit wide. Okay. try and put it back into a square. Check the alignment of these lugs because we don't want a wobbly roof. Okay, we're getting there. Just look along the line to see that you can see that they're still a little bit misaligned. I'm not sure if that comes over on camera, but I'm just casting my eye across it and trying to get the ones that aren't on board, as it were. So just a little bit of assistance with a pair of pliers, I think. Oops. That's much better. Okay. Generally flatten this off. Okay. And even though I've taken off quite a bit of filing, that's still really tight. So let's just do the edge bit of it. Obviously, I think it's really important to try and get this as flat as possible. Which is why I'm squeezing it a bit with the pliers to try and make sure that that is as aligned as I can make it. Okay, so that's actually something which starts to feel like it's going to fit to the required depth anyway. Quite a challenge. There we go. Okay, so I don't know if it's coming over on the camera, but that is still, believe it or not, a little bit proud of the wall. So I'm going to do that and that and that and that. Just to make sure that that doesn't cause any misalignment with the door. So let's just do that again. Okay, that's better. The door is now looking straight. Repeat that for this other side though. Just to make sure. Take it back a little bit. There. Okay. So we've glued the walls. We've glued obviously these pieces on. We now need to think about gluing these. So we're going to a bit of glue in there, glue in there. Same thing this side. And oops. Okay, that before I finally close it off. Pop this in. And squeeze that across in there. Okay. And obviously, just for completeness, we haven't glued them yet, but when we pop those in there, hopefully they will move. Outside, that looks good. And obviously it's up to you, but be aware that when you obviously put that piece down, that is going to lock those doors in. So that's going to have to be a careful piece of manoeuvring. Similarly with these over here. Just checking the alignment on this, I actually think it's going to be fine fitting this end piece with that piece in position. But we will try and do it all in one hit, just to be sure. Just to give ourselves a little bit of chance to manoeuvre. Okay. One thing obviously I haven't done, let's do that now, is put these supports in the roof. We're going to fit later. Whoop. Let's take the whole section out a minute. Oops. There we go. Just so I can probably push that last main piece in. Which of course would have to be the annoying one, wouldn't it? Better? Okay, so again, I'd probably paint these doors separately, but because of where we are in the sequence, I'm going to take a gamble and fit the door section in now. Try and fit the whole thing. Okay, so I've got my doors on the outside. Let's just put that guy in there a minute. Oops. Well, let's put that one up there like that. Let's try and do it all together. Okay, there we go. There are some door handles for the doors, and I would say as well, I think, just for reference, there's a long and a short. That long tag absolutely has to go at the top section of the door. So let's do that. I think by design, it just gives you a little bit more play when you're coming to fit these into the bottom. So again, just be aware of that when you're doing the same as me. There we go. Whilst we're on the subject, we'll do these guys over here quickly. We'll just do this wall section. Possibly do a bit on there. What we're doing here is just trying to obviously fit that at the same time, and that fits very snugly, and I'm very happy with that. I haven't done these guys, but we'll do that now. And I think I'll just put some extra blobs in there. Fit that to the outside wall. There we go. Excellent. That's going to be good. Oops, forget that one in the middle. And again, you can tell when you've got these lugs fitted correctly because they all align in the same direction, and you can feel them slot over the EMDF. Okay. Okay, that's that entire section finished. Let's revisit. Just by the way, there is a set of door handles that I haven't fitted. I will come back and do those later. Come around to this wall. The only concern I've got now is that without being entirely sure what's going on here, I may regret having glued this in, but we'll see. Hopefully one side won't ruin it. So I'm just going to align that back again, because that was the wall that we found, and revisit the instructions for this section. So this completes, if we were to finish this, this would complete section or step 34. Step 35 is the bastion, which I'm guessing is coming here. Because that would explain why these walls are a little bit at an odd angle, because it comes out and provides a further fortification. So just to show you the picture, what we're looking at is something like this arrangement, where we've got some window and door effect. I'm guessing that door effect, because we've got stairs later, will obviously come back into the castle. So we're going to have a little look around and see what we've got in terms of options.